My name is Emily Frew, and I'm interviewing Theresa Harlan and Bryan Hewitt on behalf of Timeless Film Festival for the documentary entry. Bryan, I would love to hear how you initially got connected with Theresa.
Yeah. So I have to remember back to that. I think that there's two levels of connection. One is love for the same land, and two is that one of Theresa's fellow Strawberry Leadership Circle members, uh, does she go by Tori or Victoria in that context?
Tori.
Tori. So Tori went to school with my partner, and so we have Tori in common, and that's how we originally became connected. And then, so, Theresa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm the director of the Alliance for Felix Cove, which works to protect, restore, and rematriate our family's home on the western shores of Point Reyes National Seashore. And we were looking for someone to document, to take video and photography of the build of a tule canoe, the first led by our family in over 200 years.
Great. Bryan, can you tell me a little bit about, or Bryan and Theresa, can you tell me a little bit about the meaning of the documentary and the genesis of this idea?
That one, I think Theresa should start, if that's okay.
Thank you. As I mentioned, the Alliance for Felix Cove is working to protect and rematriate our family's coast Miwok Támal-ko home on the western shores of Tomales Bay, which is well known by locals and tourists who come to the Point Reyes National Seashore, which is about an hour and a half north of San Francisco. So no one knows that this little home that sits on this cove actually was built by an indigenous family and had generations of that family live at the cove. And hardly anyone knows the story of how our family was separated from our home. So with the Alliance work, we wanted our work to build a tule canoe to be documented. So we hired Hewitt Visuals to do the documentary work of our project.
Great.
So we do a lot of promotional videos for a lot of people, and each of them is special. This one started to become something a little bit larger than many others very quickly when we realized that there's this incredible web of connection that the Alliance for Felix Cove is a big part of, and how many people that either they know and we know, or special places out on the land that are known to Theresa and the rest of the Alliance, and also to us. And so this became something that is, for me, it's much more than what you think of as a job, because it's an honor for me to be able to help tell this story. And this is a land, and the land back movement and the rematriation movement are things that are really important to me as well. And so I was very happy to have this opportunity to help those stories come forward.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're able to find meaning in this medium that we're also passionate about. I think that's a very noble thing. So thank you very much for sharing that, Bryan. Theresa, I wanted to ask, what ways can the general public support the land back movement, and people that are unaware of it, like how can they inform themselves?
Well, it's great actually for folks to even have an interest, and one for us is to go to our website and learn more about the work that we're doing, support our work with donations so that we can hire Bryan and Vita to document our work. One thing to do is to be aware of the homelands that each person lives in. Like, for instance, I live in Vallejo, California, so I know I am living on Patwin ancestral homelands. And the other thing is if folks have a real interest, is to go into community activities and events and learn about what people are doing in their own local areas. The other thing too is become involved in any kind of community activity that benefits the beauty and the like pick up trash. I mean, join a coastal cleanup day, join a regional park cleanup day, or a recreation conservation district activity, things like that, to really help develop a relationship to the land and the waters wherever anyone lives, is really to become involved. And as Rebecca Solnit says, don't think of yourself as an individual, think of yourself as a community. So that's what I recommend.
I love that. Do you have any specific like resources that you would recommend that people go to?
Well,
To both to educate themselves, but also to volunteer and be a part of communities. Like, is there anything that you would specifically recommend, since this film festival is Bay Area focused?
oh, okay, great. So definitely go to our website, go to Saguaro Land Trust website, or Save Berkeley Shell Mound website. Let's see what else. Go to Coast Miwok Tribal Council of Marin's website. They're actively trying to buy 22 acres of ancestral homelands. So Alliance for Felix Cove website, Coast Miwok Tribal Council of Marin website, Saguaro Land Trust website, Save Berkeley Shell Mound. Those are really good places to start.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
Bryan, if you were to expand on this short and make it longer, or if you were to change anything about how you did it, is there anything that you would adapt and why?
So if I was to expand on it, Theresa and I have already talked about doing that. So that's a
Great.
conversation that we're having. I don't really spend a lot of time looking back on what I would do different for this one, but going forward, this story is definitely not completed. I see it as part of a much broader story about how people relate to the land that they're living on. And so that's a very meaningful and important thing to me. And there's an endless amount of stories to tell about that. This one's very meaningful to me because it's the land where I live. And so most of my art that I've made has something to do with a relationship to the land where I'm at. And I also think that the Alliance people are just really lovely humans. And so all of you have these amazing stories that are worthy of being heard, in my opinion.
During the production, did you have any happy accidents while you were filming?
I had one that's kind of silly, but film tech people might care.
Yeah.
One of the things that was very important about this is that my presence not interrupt what was going on, because this is a community activity that has a lot of details, and there were people who were unsure about it and people who were like, yes, I love it. It was important that me being there and making this not disrupt that container and not distract people from the really main thing, which is building the tule boat. And so I had to use a very small camera system. And I was using the Canon R5 and my set of Olympus lenses because it's like the size of my two hands. And I realized that the tripod plate that I had put on the camera so I could switch it easily from the tripod to handheld made this great little thing for my fingers to hold. And I ended up ditching the tripod entirely because it was too big and it got in people's way. And so I put it in the car and I just had this little like handle on the bottom of my camera. And I was excited and grateful that was there because it made things possible that wouldn't have been otherwise.
Perfect. I love that. For Bryan, as someone that works on both narrative and documentary style work, do you have a preference and why?
My preference is both. That's usually my answer for either or questions. The reason is because I enjoy the way that storytelling takes shape in different contexts. A documentary story like this one, there are certain things that need to happen because I did not originate this story from my imagination. I have the honor of telling a story that exists. And so the process of doing that involves a lot of collaboration. And I'm going to ask Theresa to jump in here in a little bit, because that was something that was really important about this film. Everything that is shown in it needed to be seen and make sure that it would support and not harm the people that were involved. And that's a big consideration for me about documentary work, because I don't want to do any type of filmmaking that's going to hurt the people that it's about. Whereas narrative work, or most of my stuff that isn't documentary, is abstract or experimental. So that is highly imaginative and often involves themes that are sometimes color or tonality, or things that aren't human subjects. So that's a completely different exploration. I enjoy both of this one and that one, and going back and forth between them. But I'd like to return briefly to the subject of some of these actions that are in this film are ceremony or prayers. And so, Theresa, can you speak to how we worked with that aspect of it?
Well, yeah, I actually was surprised that my cousin would allow his prayers to be recorded, because it has mostly been in my lifetime a time when cameras are turned off. But I think now in this new generation where everyone has a cell phone camera, and he really wanted everything to be shared with our family and everything to be shared with community. So he was okay with, documenting his prayer and his song.
Do you think his motive for that is like preservation of culture? Do you think that promoted that shift in idea?
It's really about a welcoming home to our family and our community, about lighting, keeping that light going of continuity, and bearing witness to the return of our family. I think he thought that was, well, he did. He said that was why he was allowing the recording, is that he wanted it to be shared.
That's a very beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that. Theresa and Bryan, thank you so much for meeting with me today to discuss this documentary. We're excited to see it at the Timeless Film Festival on July 8th.
Thank you for having us. I'm very excited to be part of this festival, and I'm looking forward to attending the screenings.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.